Hello, my name is Larissa Ramnat, and today I'll be discussing the Respectful Model and Multicultural and Social Justice Counseling Competency, or MSJJ, as they relate to my experiences and perspectives. I'll be reflecting on how certain respectful models in my life have influenced my approach in counseling, theoretical orientation, and advocacy. I would like to start off by the three respectful factors that have been most influential in my life: my economic class, my ethnicity, and my language differences. So I grew up in a working class family where, in order for my grandparents to pay for their colleges, they had to work at a with an old woman as a cleaner. My grandfather had to work as a busboy at a diner, and he actually even lived in that diner and was sleeping in the booth because he wasn't able to afford the dormitories. When my mother immigrated here from Peru, since English is her second language and she was taking a real estate exam, she actually had to have a Spanish dictionary and an English dictionary in order to take the real estate exam because she just didn't understand a lot of English at the time. And for me personally, since both of my parents were working in not real estate, pardon me, in retail jobs in order to pay the bills, I was not able to have any money to be placed into another account in order for me to pay for college. So I worked at odd jobs or gas station jobs, primarily overnights, in order to pay for my college tuition. The only thing in my working class family that I was privileged with is that I was able to live with my parents while that happened. But I remember my mother and father telling me that every money that came in went to the bills, and we only had a little bit just to kind of scrape by for like food, gas, and what have you. Um, because of my experiences, this background has made me deeply empathetic towards clients who face economic hardships, and I also understand the financial stress that can impact mental health and overall well-being. It has also made me aware of the barriers that can prevent individuals from accessing mental health services, such as cost and availability. Another respectful model is my ethnicity. I am Palestinian Peruvian, so my father was born in Jerusalem and my mother was born in Peru. And it has played a significant role in shaping my perspective because I experienced both the pride and belonging to the pride of belonging to such a rich cultural background, but I also experienced the challenges of navigating a society in which systematic inequalities still exist. One primary example I can remember is when I was a young kid, I was in sixth grade, and we were doing, and you guys will probably find this funny too. We were doing a cultural background, and I was writing a history paper or doing a PowerPoint about Peru. And I was going in the library, I was looking at any books about Peru that I could possibly find with a classmate of mine who is Caucasian. And I remember the vice principal pulling me, walking into the library, and she just saw me walking to a bookshelf, and she screamed in the middle of the library, "Get into my office now." And so I did, and she explained I'm not allowed to do that. I said, hey, I did gain, what was it? I did get a hall pass, and I also got a written letter of a written letter to be able to do this. My classmate does it too, and she said, I don't care about your classmate, and I would like to mention that my classmate is Caucasian. And she said, I care about what you're doing and you ditching class. I told her, hey, I'm not ditching class. She said it doesn't matter, and then she sent me back to the my classroom after it happened. And one thing that I do primarily remember is that after that whole situation happened, I was not allowed to walk alone in the hallways anymore, and I actually had to walk with a escort, whether it be to the bathroom, whether it be to the office or anything of the sort. Like, there would always have to be an escort with me. And I just remember feeling a deep sense of shame and a deep sense of confusion because I'm like, hold on. I had a classmate of mine doing the same thing that I was. We were both doing the same project. We both got an not acceptance, pardon me. We both got a written letter that it was okay for us to miss class so we could focus on this project. But she did not get any disciplinary action while I'm sitting there having to be escorted like a common criminal to just use the bathroom. Um, and I remember tried to talk to my teacher in private, not my teacher, the vice principal in private, saying, hey, this is what I was looking at. Like, I gave her my notebook. I was like, this is everything that I was doing. Like, I wasn't playing video games. I wasn't messing around. This is what it was. And when I went to stand in line, my teacher pulled me aside and he said, you have no right to do that at all. You had no right to accost her and talk to her that way. And I said, hey, I'm just trying to explain the situation. And he said, don't be back talking me. So I remember that. And also when I was in fifth grade, being a kid, we were just messing around, flipping each other off. And my classmate, who is Caucasian and male and a male, he did not get any repercussions, but I got suspended for 3 days. So with those two situations, that's why I feel so strongly about it, because I know what it's like to be discriminated against, and I can empathize with my patients and what they went through. Um, One thing I would like to talk about too, since I've been going into the different ethnicities, is different languages. The languages has significantly impacted my understanding of communication and its role in therapy. I grew up in a multilingual household. My father's first language is Arabic, and my mother's first language is Spanish. I was often required to navigate between those languages, in which they gave me a deep appreciation of how languages can shape our thoughts, emotions, and identity. This experience has made me attuned to these challenges faced by clients for whom English is not a first language, and has also highlighted the importance of ensuring that language barriers do not impede on the therapeutic process. Pardon me. I believe that being sensitive to language differences is crucial in providing effective and respectful counseling. I feel so strongly about this because I understand firsthand the differences of grammar and phonetics in order to make or break a language in order for you to understand it or not. One primary example I can think of is in Spanish, when you're describing a place or person, or pardon me, a place or thing, not a person, a place or thing. In Spanish, the noun comes first and then the adjective comes second. So, for example, Casablanca. Well, in English, that would be switch, where the noun comes first and the adjective comes second, which would be White House. Also in Arabic, another thing I found very interesting is that in Arabic, there's no verb that is in the present tense. And the verb, and pardon me, and also in Arabic, every sentence requires an inclusion of a pronoun. And just like in Spanish, everything also requires a inclusion of masculine or feminine. So going back to my first example of Casablanca, have you noticed that Blanca is also feminine, just like the noun casa, but also with the word meaning white? Blanca could be Blanca or Blanco, depending on the noun that's being used in the sentence. Well, in English, one thing I heard too that everyone said that was hard to navigate was that we don't use a lot of gender in our sentences when we're just talking about places or things, that we don't have to worry about White House. Like, for example, White House, even though the E could considerably be feminine in Spanish cultures or Arabic cultures, in English there's no gender to it. So therefore, the adjective does not have to reflect the gender of the noun. So that's one thing that I know everyone in my family said that they had a difficulty in navigating. Um, because of those factors that I just mentioned, they also have significantly influenced how my approach to counseling and advocacy. Because of my background, I am very much drawn to theories like social justice, empowerment, and the importance of understanding clients within their cultural and social economic context. So theories like feminist theory and also multicultural counseling resonate with me because they align with my beliefs that the client's environment, their factors like race, class, and gender plays a crucial role in their mental health. In my professional experience, I have seen patients who come from very affluent homes, come from very strong support systems where they have a lot of money, where when they are placed in an M1 hold after a psychotic break, or unfortunately due to suicidal ideation or homicidal ideation, they are able to actually go back to their day-to-day life and not worry about losing their job, not worry about losing their scholarship, not worrying about losing their housing or anything of the sort, because they have that fallback. But I've also unfortunately seen patients where they don't have those support systems, and unfortunately they do almost get evicted from their apartment. They do lose their job, or they did lose their scholarship by not being able to attend those programs because of being placed on an M1 hold. And one thing too is even though I'm a very, very big proponent of resources and I offer resources such as residential housing, such as findhelp.org for finding food, more affordable services in order to pay utilities and bills. I remember I had one patient, they told me these resources are absolutely fantastic and they're great. And I'm glad that you're trying to give them to me. But my problem is this is not my first time at this rodeo. And just because it's there doesn't mean I can get it. There's a lot of factors that are into play that prevent me from doing so. Example being, a food bank. Well, food banks run at certain times, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, I'm working during those times. Also, there's some food banks that are around during times that I'm able to go to, but I'm not able to walk to them due to physical disabilities, or I don't have the money to get on a bus and go to those places and then come back. So unfortunately, in providing those resources, even though they're a great idea, there are still a lot of barriers that can happen where they're unable to get to those resources. Um, so my background makes me passionate in advocating for that economic equity and addressing those racial disparities. And all these information will impact my approach in allowing me to have more empathetic listening abilities and showing understanding when patients do talk about those barriers and using problem solving skills, talking to supervisors, talking to anything of the sort in order to gain them those resources. And so that's why that empathetic listening really does come in, because I want to not only be able to understand where they're coming from, but I also want to be able to help them problem solve into getting those resources. Another thing too is, since I'm bilingual, I would also like to counsel patients who primarily speak Spanish and Arabic. And the reason I talk about that is because in my job I act as a translator from time to time, but I would also like to focus on the trauma that can come from being a first generation immigrant here, and also the difficulties, not only when learning a new language, but also learning a new culture here too. And it can be very traumatic where you come from a different country and you have to relearn everything. You have to relearn how everyone talks, acts, and what is considered a compliment or insulting in said culture. And someone who comes from a very, multicultural background, it is very hard to navigate. And there are times where we accidentally step on somebody's toes, because what may be okay in American culture is not okay in Peruvian culture, and what may be okay in Peruvian culture may not be okay in, Palestinian culture. And though I am blessed to have a very understanding family, there are times where these patients may not be privileged to have to be surrounded by people that are very understanding. And another thing too, as is when children are first generation American citizens, they are having to navigate their parents' culture and also Americans' culture. So I can actually assume that can be completely traumatic for them, because it's just very confusing and can be very overwhelming, and understandably so. Um, so in understanding multicultural and social justice counseling competencies, or MSJCC for short, has further reinforced the importance of integrating cultural competence into my counseling practice, and being aware of language barriers, cultural barriers, and economic barriers as well. And just to understand that, just because you say something, just word it differently, or just be very patient when they're trying to translate it. Also be understanding that, just because, you offer these resources, they may not be able to get said resources. And just overall, just trying to be very empathetic. But even though I said that, as I continue through this course, these competencies will deeply inform my theoretical orientation. I also expect to learn more things. And even though I'm learning this, even though I talked about the stuff I know, I also want to learn more stuff so I can just be a better counselor and be able to better help my patients in any way I possibly can, by using the knowledge that I gained through this field, and also from my graduate program. But at the end of the day, I hope to provide holistic and culturally responsive care to meet every client's unique needs. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you have any other theories that you think I might find interesting, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to look into it, because right now I'm just a bottomless pit of knowledge and I just want to consume more and more. Thank you so much for understanding. And I hope you guys enjoy the video.